Hello and welcome to Richmond Kickers Weekly. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined as ever, and as I was at City Stadium on Saturday, by Mr. Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good, except that we're here to talk about Richmond Kickers 0, Chattanooga Red Wolves 2.
Yep.
That's a home defeat for the Richmond Kickers.
It is. I understand your consternation and your tone in beginning this one.
I will say we found a good vantage point at City Stadium.
We did.
We did, right? So we're media, but we don't normally go in the press box
Nah.
because we want to get some of that atmosphere.
Yeah.
We found a nice spot in the middle
Also
on the concourse.
Also booze.
Overlooking the field,
Yes.
right? So I actually felt this is the game we've watched the most closely in stadium and then rewatched in the studio.
Yep.
Yeah? So we're prepped. We're prepped for this one.
I think we are, which was important because we said coming into this one that this was sort of a make-or-break game, a very important game, potentially critical game for the United States. For the Richmond Kickers, we're preparing for the U.S. Versus Guyana as we record this. And because given the Kickers kind of slide, their fall down the table, we felt like this was an opportunity to turn it around against a team that were level on points. I think like right around the same goal difference, two teams that were relatively evenly matched. The Kickers beat Chattanooga earlier this season.
Yes.
And in the end, it ends up with another loss for the Kickers.
And now the Red Wolves are up to 5th, and the Kickers are 8th out of 10 with 12 points after 12 games. I'm sure you can work out the average points per game.
Not many.
It's one.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the two Red Wolves goals and sort of how we think they happened. And then we're going to get into, because it's 12 games in, we're going to talk about maybe what we think might not be working for the Kickers, and we're going to have some suggest things that we would do maybe to try and make things better.
Sure.
And we'll do it with some humility, right? We know we're not professional coaches. We're guys that watch the games.
Yeah.
But we still have some ideas.
Yes,
and we're going to share them with Kickers fans and listeners.
We are, and we will. And they do sort of relate to the way this game went because Kickers, I would venture to guess, don't have the statistics in front of me. I'm going to guess they probably had a decent percentage, if not the lion's share of possession.
They usually do. Possession too.
Yeah, but both of these goals come from sort of the ruthlessness of the counterattack and Chattanooga being very efficient and the Kickers maybe not being quite as up to the challenge in that moment.
And I'd even argue, so the first goal, 63rd minute, it's Pineda. It starts with the Kickers in possession, but it all going wrong.
Yep.
We're in possession in Chattanooga's third. We're in the attacking third. It's a throw-in received by Josh Hughes. And Hughes is dispossessed because he's sort of forced towards the end line and then surrounded by, I think, 3 Chattanooga Red Wolves players.
And several Kickers players who stand there.
That's the problem, right? It's not Hughes' fault. He receives he sort of checks 2 for the throw-in, receives the ball, and then if you watch through the next few seconds, none of the many Kickers players around him move. There is no movement. No one is getting... It's not about movement just for the sake of movement. It's about getting free to receive the pass from Hughes. Someone should have been making themselves open to receive the pass from Hughes. He said he has no option except to get sort of pushed to the end line and dispossessed.
Or just to take defenders away. If you make a run, maybe you pull that defender. If you drop off a little bit, maybe that defender goes with, and it's just a few more yards of space for Josh Hughes.
So you open space for Hughes to move into. If he can't find a pass, he can move into space.
Yeah, but in the end, he basically controls it, has to go back towards the thrower. Chattanooga kind of collapsed, and he ends up getting dispossessed because there's not much there to help him.
Yeah.
But then it's not as though Chattanooga then build quickly and have this rapid counterattack necessarily. They boot long.
It's a pretty big counter. Oh no, because it's just a clearance to begin with that turns into counterattack. That's the worrying thing, right?
They just go long. I don't think they're aiming for their striker, number 9, which was Mare. Instead, I think it's just trying to get clear. And Connor Shinovsky does well to make a play on the ball.
Steps, heads the ball.
But the header itself, not so great because it basically goes right to the feet of Pineda, who then launches the counterattack.
Yeah, this is where that's when it all starts.
Yeah, and this is, contrasting with the Kickers, this is a thing that we don't necessarily often see from the Richmond Kickers, which is the sort of momentary recognition of, I've caught them in a state of transition.
It's on.
We've bypassed a lot of their players.
Yeah.
The counterattack is on.
Because when Pineda receives Shinovsky's header, what he does immediately is play it down the line to Mare.
Yep.
And then because Shinovsky's out of position, because he's stepped up to win the header, so it's not his fault really. He's done his job by stepping and winning it.
Except I would interject to say that he wins the header, it goes to Pineda. He's aware that now he's basically between Pineda and Mare, and he chooses to step to Pineda even though there's already cover there from Retzlaff. So I think maybe
the wrong decision?
Maybe, but then again, Katarzynovski, no disrespect, his game is not built on speed, so I don't know if he's ever going to be able to make up that amount of distance, so maybe he's just trying to put Pineda under a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, do you know what? If I'm Shinovsky and I know I'm not covering that ground that quickly, maybe the best bet is stop the danger here, but he doesn't manage to do so.
And maybe also you're aware that there's a younger, potentially faster midfielder who can also track some people, but maybe doesn't?
Maybe doesn't. Yeah. All right, so Pineda goes down the line to Mare. Mare is one-on-one with Akwe, and in my opinion, Akwe does really well here. He forces Mare out wide. Mare has a nice cut to get back to the inside, but Akwe still makes sure to get back. He doesn't get fooled by the cut and beaten. He comes back across to make sure Mare has no path to goal, but after playing that ball down the line to start the counter-attack, Pineda has started his run to the interior, right? And Retzlaff, I think he's level with him to begin with. I don't know if this is just a foot speed thing, but never catches him up. He's always trailing him.
He is trailing about when Retzlaff starts to chase Pineda, he's maybe 2 to 3 yards behind. When Pineda gets the ball, dribbles in and scores, Retzlaff is 2 to 3 yards behind. So, and it's not as though that's at a full sprint and he can't close. There is definitely a moment when they both slow down because of that cutback you mentioned. So I think there's an opportunity to get goal side to make a play to cause some level of problem. Retzlaff just isn't able to do it in the moment.
So essentially Pineda's reactions were faster than Retzlaff's. I think he takes off sooner and then he also reacts to the cut sooner.
I think that's probably part of it. I also think there's a decent chance that because Chattanooga were, I would say, a bit more defensive, happy to sit back in their own half and let the Kickers possess around midfield, there's probably an argument.
More on that later.
Yeah, there's probably an argument that Retzlaff probably ran a bit more than Pineda had at that point, maybe a little bit more fatigued at that point. He definitely looks tired later on in the game, that's for sure.
Well, Pineda ran in on goal and he got the shot around Akira Fitzgerald. 1-0 Chattanooga in the 63rd minute.
Yes.
In terms of the story of the game, one thing I want to just mention is that David Bulow, coach, makes some subs but keeps the exact same shape, right, for pretty much the rest of the game. I think the only sort of attacking change is at some point Akwe, the centre-back, essentially goes and plays extra centre-forward, like John Terry used to for Chelsea.
Yeah.
But there's no other change in shape, right? It's the same old shape.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
and the same style.
Like, Bolduc comes in, he moves Gallardo to the middle as a number 10.
So he replaces
Bolduc goes wide. I think Chin for Jackson, that's kind of a like-for-like substitution. So yeah,
centre-forward for centre-forward.
Pretty much the same.
USL announcer didn't quite notice that.
He did not.
Called Jackson Chin for the rest of the game.
Sometimes he called Mwape Chin as well.
Oh, dear.
Yes.
Oh, dear. We don't know who that commentator is, but do better.
Yes.
Do better.
Gallardo.
Okay. Chattanooga score a second. It's late in the game. My memory is Joe Gallardo sort of loses... Either he has possession and loses the ball or loses a 50-50 to Uelefe, number 7 for Chattanooga.
It's Chattanooga basically have the ball. It's an errant pass that Gallardo is able to intercept, but then he can't control very cleanly. And so I think while he is then putting in the effort to try to control the ball, his focus is on that. Whereas Uelefe, I think, is on winning the ball and also maybe knocking over Joe Gallardo, which he does, but legally, then Gallardo has to make a play because there's a chance that the counterattack is on again. And Gallardo basically resorts to the foul and the yellow card and a free kick.
So, free kick. The Kickers are lining up to defend a cross. Chattanooga do something very, very clever.
They certainly do.
You spotted it first, right? Who is it who starts this whole thing?
It's Cito, the eventual goal scorer.
Oh, same as Pineda, starting the last move and being the eventual goal scorer. What does Cito do, Taylor, as they're standing over the free kick?
So if you can imagine it, basically he's standing over the free kick.
And I've asked you to do it because I don't know how to describe this move.
It's like sort of an instep pass, but like reverse. Like basically he's standing over the ball, he steps over it with his left foot and is sort of like looking around like, oh, am I allowed to play? And then as he's standing over it with left foot in front of the ball, right foot to the side of the ball, he kind of uses the right instep to pass it behind his heel to Uelefe, who's standing there. But it's very subtle.
Takes off.
He does. It's a very subtle little tap. I will say credit to Joe Gallardo, who's aware that the ball is now in play.
Is he the only one that spots it?
He's the only one who spots it, but even then he doesn't really aggressively close. I think maybe because he sees Cito running by and thinks, am I supposed to track him? But is also aware that there are several other Kickers players behind him who are more than capable of doing just that.
So Cito takes off. Uelefe gives it to Pineda, who is in the box. He's got a defender on his back. I'm actually not sure who the Kickers defender is. He's got a defender on his back, but Cito's running beyond him into the area. So Pineda can just lay it off, right? Tacito, who then it's a really nice shot. Actually, he bends it around Fitzgerald and into the far side netting. Right?
Yes,
it's really, really nice.
It's really, really nice, but it's made nicer because there's not a lot of marking going on. Because the Kickers players are very static. As I mentioned, there's 2 behind Joe Gallardo, both of whom are standing. There's a lot of players on the top of the 18 who are standing, and it's another kind of familiar thing. It's Kickers players standing as the other team reacts just a little bit faster.
Yeah,
and that's all the difference may end up being.
So there you go. Chattanooga win 2-0 away to the Kickers through 1, a really quick counter-attack goal, and 2, a very clever set piece.
Yep.
But as you said, right, it's not a disaster to concede 2 goals, right? You need to be scoring goals, and I think the Kickers' problem is scoring goals.
Yep.
Is that fair?
It is.
And so I want to sort of diagnose a couple of the problems and maybe offer our suggested solutions, or maybe what we would do as more as thought experiments, as opposed to demanding that David Bulow do it.
Sure, that's fine, and that's probably the better way to do it since he is, an actual coach.
Yeah.
But I would say this: one of the more telling things to me about the way this game went down, or kind of the final result, is that you would expect, if you saw that score sheet, you would see 63rd minute, 92nd minute, you'd think, oh, Kickers get scored on, they make some changes, they've got everybody push forward, they're really attacking, and they just happen to get counterattacked. Maybe it's even that there's only 3 minutes of extra time, the goalkeeper's all the way forward, and then they're able to score on an empty net.
Yeah.
And you go and watch.
Fitzgerald was up for a header.
Yeah, and you go and watch this play, and it's Chattanooga kind of getting possession back, Kickers turning possession over, Chattanooga turning possession over, but it's all around midfield.
Yeah.
And it's not Kickers bombing forward with a bunch of numbers, it's sort of getting dispossessed at midfield, and that to me is problem number 1, that it seems like the Kickers, when they do have possession, which is frequently, it's around midfield. And it's not a lot of...
Oh, I'd say even farther back. I see a lot of centre-back to deepest midfielder to centre-back. Right?
Which I think informs the other issue, which is sort of rushed opportunities. That when they do get shooting chances, when they do get in the attacking third, they're very quick to cross the ball in, to try to center the ball, to get a shot off as fast as they can. And I think that's because if all of the possession is in the defensive third or up until midfield, then you're sort of used to having the ball in that area. So suddenly, if you are within 20 or 25 yards of the goal, there's that momentary feeling of now's my chance. It might be my only chance. I got to get a shot off. I got to get a cross off.
That's what it looks like to you?
Yeah. And it doesn't look like we're going to pass the ball forward. We're going to find kind of some opportunities. We're going to find some of the seams. We'll get another pass in. That pass will go wide. That pass will go back central. Now we're around the 18. We've got 6 players committed forward, and we can move the ball and find some opportunities.
Actually, this is the biggest thing for me that I've realised after 12 games of the Richmond Kickers, in which I've seen every single game, right, is they are a possession team, but when I imagine a really good possession team, and let's say I'm imagining Manchester City, right, which I know is a very, very high standard.
Pretty much the same.
Let's imagine it. The possession is at the top of the opposition box.
100%.
That's where you're possessing the ball and looking for an opening and working it and eventually finding something, right? And it doesn't come off all the time, but you eventually find an opening and exploit it. The Kickers are a possession team where the majority of the possession is either in their own half or just over the halfway line.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? And so to me, this is really obvious, but the biggest problem with the Kickers is to progress that possession from their own third to the final third. That's the biggest problem I see. Here's my question for you before we start trying to offer solutions. Why do you think that is happening? Why aren't the Kickers having possession farther up the field? Why does it seem to be so much in their own half?
I think there's a couple things to that one. I think, first off, what we talked about with Josh Hughes on the throw-in that leads to the first goal, I think that's pretty standard for the Kickers.
The lack of movement from the players?
Especially in the attacking half. It's sort of players go forward and then they're kind of forward and that's about it. And you don't have a lot of movement. You don't have a lot of interchange. The times you do, it does tend to work. You get overloads. But I think a lot of the time...
I'd agree. You can sort of look at the Kickers formation and it's kind of really represented on the field and players tend to stay in that formation, right? The left winger stays wide left, the right winger stays wide right. The two other midfielders are kind of left of centre, right of centre, or maybe just staggered one and then one farther ahead. And the strikers up front. It's very rare that there's any variation or... in possession, positional rotation.
And here's what I would say to that. I mostly agree.
Yeah.
In the first 30 minutes, though, I did see Retzlaff dropping in alongside Maxi Rodriguez, and both of them were slightly ahead of the 2 center backs. And I say that only to say that that is not a thing I saw, especially in the second half. Instead, we kind of went back to the standard center back spread wide. Maxi Rodriguez drops in between them. That means Retzlaff drops in a little bit more. Now he's in almost a number 6 spot. That means everybody else has to theoretically come back, although a lot of times they're not. Yeah. So then I think what happens is if you're Maxi Rodriguez and you get that ball in the middle, maybe maybe Retzlaff is there. You play it to Retzlaff, but he's got a man on his back. He drops it back to Maxi Rodriguez. Rodriguez goes to one of the two center backs. Center back doesn't really have a ball forward. He can maybe go wide, or he can turn and play it back to Maxi Rodriguez. And that tends to be the pattern.
I think you've seen that a lot, right? Or it goes out to a fullback, but the fullback doesn't have any options to play into midfield, so the fullback comes back to the centre-backs and we start the whole thing again.
Yes, and this is where I would also add that I think there's a decent argument that Maxi Rodriguez is part of the problem. Okay. And I don't mean to say that
captain of the Richmond Kickers.
It's weird to say, and I feel slightly uncomfortable, but it's the reality because I don't think it's his ability even. It's not like he can't play a ball. It's not like he's not good enough.
I've seen him ping some beautiful passes. I've seen him pick out passes. I've seen him make great defensive plays. Yeah. So what is the problem?
And I'll add his defensive work rate is excellent. He puts out fires routinely. The problem is like the one that I showed you that really stood out is in the 37th minute, 36-26 if you want to go back and watch. Yeah. The Kickers have a throw-in in the attacking third. They've got numbers committed forward. Chattanooga have 8 players crowded over to deal with that throw-in.
Okay. So there's on one side of the field.
On one side of the field. You have Lockerbie on the far side for the Kickers, wide open. You've got even Matai Mawape in a 1v1 situation at the top of the box. He is fairly open when this throw-in is taken, and Maxi Rodriguez has done a good job of like pointing for the throw-in to go to, I think, Akwe. So then a Chattanooga player leaves Maxi Rodriguez and goes to Akwe. Now, Maxi Rodriguez is wide open.
He's opened up some space there.
Exactly. But what he chooses to do is receive the throw-in, kind of half-turn with the ball bouncing, and hit a volley in the direction of Connor Shinosky. But Connor Shinosky, the right center back, has stepped forward to show for the ball because I think they are trying to get numbers into the attacking third. And the ball goes over Shinosky's head. He has to run backwards and collect it. Maxi Rodriguez comes to show. When he gets the ball again, he drops it back to Akwe. Yeah. And it's just that sort of
Are you saying the problem's with the technique of the ball he hit to Shinosky or the decision to go to Shinosky instead of to a more attacking move?
That one.
So what were his other options? If I rewatch this at, 36, 26?
Yeah, I mean, he can, I think, turn. He's got a little bit of pressure, but I think he can easily turn around the defender, play the ball square all the way across the field to Lockerbie, who, again, is wide open and can bomb down that right wing. Yeah. I think there's even an argument that if he went for the adventurous pass when that throw-in is taken to him, the one-time like left foot instep, I think he can find Matai Mawape there. Or at least ask some questions, and that right there is the issue, is that there doesn't seem to be, and it's not just Maxi, but that's the player I'm talking about here, it doesn't seem like there's an inclination to try stuff, to try that dangerous ball, to just see maybe if we can get that ball into like one of our teammates. It feels like it's this weird either I'm going to rush a pass because it might be on, or it's never mind, I'm just going to recycle possession. And it never feels like that decision is made at the right time.
Does it feel like the Kickers are prioritising keeping possession by moving it around between centre-back, deepest midfielder, centre-back, left-back, centre-back, and we just go and go and go, waiting for an opening to occur? And it's almost like we do that so much that when there is an opening, an opportunity to play an adventurous ball or a ball that makes some forward progress or a ball where space has been opened up, the Kickers are maybe so in the mindset of possession, that they play the safe pass instead of the risky pass. Is that a mindset problem?
I mean,
like possession first and not like let's attack first.
Maybe, but I don't know if I think that's it. I think that if it's a team sitting off being defensive, as Chattanooga were here, it's like I equate it with, I don't want to have any Game of Thrones spoilers, so I'll just say it's the equivalent of like if you go like medieval battles and there's one
I will say Game of Thrones has already been spoiled by the 8th season.
That's true, but I'm just going to say if you think of like a medieval battle and you've got like the one army like set to defend and they're in like siege mentality and the other army who's attacking is standing 50 yards off like we're coming, and then they're just like moving laterally. It's like, okay, well, we'll be waiting for you. Like it's. I think that's part of it. That's
the Red Wolves are saying to the Kickers, "We'll be waiting."
Yeah, it's like okay, we're here whenever you want to try, and that's what I kept seeing is sort of like Red Wolves players sort of step out, but they were never really putting the Kickers players under pressure at midfield, and so I think it was
just they knew not to open up loads of space, right?
Yes, and so to answer your question in a roundabout way, it feels a little bit like those Kickers players are waiting. Like eventually, though, they're going to step out and they're going to leave their siege mentality and they're going to come for us.
If we wait long enough, someone will just accidentally open the castle door.
Exactly.
Castle gate?
Gate. And then when they don't, it's like, all right, well, let's just get rid of the siege equipment. Everybody just attack the walls and see what happens. And so then they just launch the ball over the top, or they go for like a direct driven ball, and
then the goalkeeper on top of the castle catches it.
Exactly. Exactly. Or is often the case, the other thing they'll do is rely on individual skill. Usually Joe Gallardo, sometimes Matai
Who's
Mwape.
capable and is capable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes Matthew Bolduc as well. But it's like that. I guess that's what I feel is like the Kickers' goals this season, when it happened, have been sort of either individual efforts dribbling through and scoring, it's been set pieces, or it's been long balls over the top that maybe come off. But it hasn't
been from the long established possession, and eventually we open some space up and exploit it. Right? Okay, so here's what I want to get to.
Yeah.
I see the Kickers' future as like two paths. One path is the David Buehler possession system. They just get better at it.
Yep.
They just refine it more, and they're able to find passes in midfield and make forward progression and open opposition up. Or, which 12 games in, I would argue we've tried for long enough.
Yep.
Or maybe we start making some tweaks to not necessarily the entire philosophy, because I enjoy possession soccer. I'm glad that's what the Richmond Kickers are doing. I just want it to be better, obviously, so we win more games. Maybe the other path is we start tweaking the system. So maybe you and I could offer some potential tweaks that the Kickers could make to make things better.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'll steal one from you because I think you mentioned this one, but I wrote it down. So in your face is increase the tempo, because the probing passes from left to right, right to left, they can be effective.
Are they probing?
Well, you're right. Sorry, the lateral passes from like left back, left center back, right back to the center back to Maxi Rodriguez, back to the other center back.
Yeah.
That even that isn't necessarily the worst thing, because you can make the argument of pass and pass and pass, and maybe you've kind of pulled Chattanooga all to one side, and then you go backwards, and now suddenly they're slow to get back onto the other side, and you have like a channel to attack. Yeah. The problem is that it's, instead of it being pass, is routinely pass and pass.
Yeah.
And pass.
So
and
literally, even if we're under no pressure at the back, instead of like putting your foot on the ball and looking around because there's no pressure, just keep it zipping.
Yep.
Even great possession team, Barcelona, under Guardiola. Do you remember there were moments when
ding, ding,
Xavi
ding, ding, ding.
Xavi and Iniesta would just almost stand 3 yards away from each other and go ding, 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 ding. It's almost like they're just warming up or setting the tempo of the ball moving was the point of doing it.
And can I interject to say, but it's also the case that like if you're the team defending
is that Xavi texting you?
It is, to say, we did that right. And also what you're about to say is also right. I'm a precock. It's that like
he probably is.
The other thing is that if you are trying to be the opposition army and stand outside the castle and be like, haha, come get us, annoying the other team is a way to do that, and having like an insulting number of back and forth passes is enough that eventually a player's gonna be like, all right, I'm going to win that ball. Like I'm not going to let you guys just complete 20 passes.
I really believe that.
Yeah,
I really believe that, because the slow pass, you can just stand and watch it and be like, all right, do that.
But the other thing that you hit upon there is that like it is I'm going to pass, like, if I'm the right center back and I'm passing to you in the Maxi Rodriguez role, a lot of times it's you put your foot on the ball, you look around, okay, nothing else is on, I'll play it to the other center back. He puts his foot on it, looks around, okay, nothing else is on. And you're absolutely right that if it's pass, a couple touches, maybe even like 2 touches, but maybe 1 touch, it's you're not like picking your head up and looking.
Right back, centre back, left back, get there real fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that opens up more space. And then if you're really preaching possession,
because then Scott Thompson is in some space on that left. Yeah.
And if you're preaching possession and like patterns of attack, then the idea would be that, okay, we've completed these passes. That right winger knows that he's going to drop into like a midfield spot. One of the central midfielders is going to go wide, and now maybe that other pass is now on down the channel.
And then already, if Bolduc knows that the plan is to go, right back, centre back, left back, he can start. Say Bolduc's the left winger, he can start getting open for the pass from Scott Thompson. He can be ahead of the game, and we all know what's coming. Like, at least the Kickers all know what's coming next.
Yeah.
The opposition don't know what's coming next.
Yes.
All right, we might be running out of time, so I just want to suggest another possible tweak. This is one where it's usually Maxi Rodriguez, the pivot type guy, will drop between the 2 centre backs and establish possession. And then for me, because he's done that, there aren't enough available bodies in midfield to pass to. I would argue that Shinovsky and Akwai are good enough with the ball that maybe we just trust them. Just trust them to find Maxi Rodriguez or the other 2 central midfielders in midfield. Like, don't put it all on Maxi Rodriguez. Everyone share the responsibility of playing that forward pass, and then Rodriguez can go and join the other midfielders and be part of the potential solution.
Yes.
Trust Shinovsky, trust Akwai, let them pass out of the back.
Yes, and I think my final one would be, we've already hit upon it a couple times, but I'll say it again, you've got to increase the movement a little bit. If you want to try to do this quick passing, but have the possession move into a more attacking shape where you've got attacking possession, it's got to be a lot more movement, and it's not just vertical movement, running towards goal, play the long ball over the top, or play the long ball to the channel. It's got to be, I'm going to check in, someone else is going to check away, someone else will check 2, someone will take my spot, spot, I'll take somebody else's spot. It's got to be a lot more liquid movement.
Jackson switch with Mbappe. Go to the right, Mbappe goes to the middle for a second. Or say Hughes is one of your central midfielders. He switches with, say, the left winger. Say it's Bolduc or Gallardo. They briefly switch position. You're going to confuse the markers by doing that, right? You'll definitely confuse the announcer.
You certainly will. And that's what it's all about in the end. So, I mean, those are three quick things. Is maybe Maxi doesn't drop so much. You increase the tempo of the passing. You get a little bit more movement. You're not quite so static. Maybe that helps change things up. Or, as you said, maybe you just kind of change up your overall tactics and you see what happens there. I would rather...
It won't be a rip it up and start everything, right? If it's going to be anything, it's going to be some little tweaks.
And nor do I want it to be, because I do, as you said, I like the Kickers. When they do have possession, when it's moving, it looks good, and that's what I would prefer the style of soccer we play be.
Yeah.
It's just, I would also like it to end with some goals.
Oh, I've got one thing to add, maybe. Do the Kickers need to toughen up?
Yeah,
because there was a moment, there was a ball through to Daniel Jackson.
Yeah.
He's 1-on-1 with the keeper, and I fully expected Jackson to possibly, potentially hurt the keeper, but, risk going for the ball and making something happen. And Jackson 100% pulls out. And it kind of... Actually, we were watching with a friend who said to us, maybe the Kickers are too nice. Maybe the Kickers just aren't tough enough.
And do you know who I bet that made incredibly... Or who was, incredibly frustrated by that? Is David Bulow.
Yes.
Because we've seen him play. We saw him play for the Kickers.
Yeah.
He doesn't pull out of those challenges. David Bulow is going to win the ball and is going to score a goal.
Yeah.
And we saw his reaction after the second goal. You can tell that he is feeling it emotionally and is feeling the frustration. And so hopefully they can kind of get the ball rolling. They can maybe take some of these suggestions.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I'm sure we'll hear about it one way or the other. But
and maybe as another example, we talked about maybe Max Rodriguez has had to make do some professional fouls and get a yellow card to stop a counter-attack happening. But what if we had a midfielder who, not just doing a professional foul, just kind of bullies the opposition? Someone who's just willing to knock people over and be like, hey, you're in a game. You should be scared of me.
I mean, Akwai did that at the very end, and it was...
He did. I think he's the only one who has that streak. I really love him for it.
Maybe a little stepping on a player's toes.
Yeah.
I don't always love that, but I also don't always hate that.
But that's part of the game, right? You intimidate the opposition a little bit, and I'm not sure the Kickers are doing that through possession or through physicality.
All right, well, let's see what the Kickers do in their next game.
You said do.
There you go. I did it to make you happy, because something has to.
Do you know where the Kickers' next game is?
Sure don't.
If you don't, I've got the schedule in front of me.
What you got?
So we're saved. The Kickers are away for 2 games in a row. So Saturday, June 22nd, they're away to Tormenta. Then Saturday, June 29th, they're away to the Chattanooga Red Wolves.
All right.
So it's going to be a rematch. Then after that, the next home game, July 13th, it's North Texas SC.
Oh, boy.
Who we all know, best team in the league.
Revenge.
My hope is Ricardo Pepi has been promoted to FC Dallas by then. There's
so.
rumours of him signing a pro.
Maybe they all will?
Maybe they all
Yes.
will. It'll just be 11 random dudes from North Texas who have to take the field.
Selfishly,
instead of those talented youth players.
If that's not the case, my other hope is that maybe some of the players who were with the U20s return and are playing with North Texas. I wouldn't mind seeing Brandon Cervania play for North Texas SC, playing some balls in for Pepi. Although, as a Kickers fan, I would much rather not see that happen.
Yeah, that's kind of a lose-lose, right?
Yeah.
Or a win-lose? I'm not
Either
sure.
way.
Either way, this has been Richmond Kickers Weekly. Taylor Rockwell, thanks for watching the game with me. Thanks for talking this through. Listeners, thanks for listening. We always appreciate it. And I think I hear the Red Army in the distance just starting to play.